This is the Pennyworth podcast from TV Podcast Industries. We're back in DC's Batverse with Pennyworth Season 3, Episodes 1, 2, and 3. I haven't heard that music in a while.
Absolutely. Gosh, I feel old.
We're back on the TV Podcast Industries with the Pennyworth podcast. We're talking about Season 3 of the show. The first 3 episodes were released on HBO Max, a brand new channel for the 3rd season of Pennyworth. I'm one of your hosts for TV Podcast Industries, Derek.
Yes, welcome back, fellow Gothamites, dare I say it. Yes.
Maybe future Gothamites?
Or future Gothamites, yes. We're certainly not in Gotham City by any stretch of the imagination, but I am one of your other hosts, John.
Yes, good to be back, fellow governors, with our chats about Pennyworth. Been a long time. If you're just joining us for the first time on TV Podcast Industries, we have been covering the shows Gotham and Pennyworth for now 8 years. If you can think about it like that. 5 seasons of Gotham, and this is the
well,
3rd season of Pennyworth.
I feel really old now. I feel really old. I have to say, this was an unexpected surprise getting a season 3 when it was announced. I just didn't think it was necessarily going to get picked up. Yep. But fair dues to the team behind Pennyworth that Absolutely. It has. And, of course, it comes with a little tagline now, the origins of Batman's butler.
Yes, yes.
So, yes.
I'm not too sure why they added that.
No, I'm not too sure either, but I'm guessing given the changes that we've seen in this first episode that we're going to cover, then it's getting a little bit more familiar, and now the Americans are involved, not just evil right-wing authoritarian ravens. And by that I mean the political party from the first 2 seasons and not the fantastic NFL team from Baltimore.
True, very true, very true. Yes, the Raven Society, who became the Raven Union.
Yes.
If I remember correctly.
It is, well done.
And just so you know, fellow governors, if you're just joining us for Pennyworth Season 3, all episodes of Pennyworth are available on HBO Max, and all episodes of Gotham are available on HBO Max. And we have an episode for each one of those shows on our podcast.
And more, because we did about 25 podcasts building up to Gotham.
That's right.
Looking at Gotham Central comic series by Brubaker.
Yep.
And also looking at the Christopher Nolan films at the time.
Yeah.
So, there was a fair number of dare I say it, lead-in podcasts to this. And then, unfortunately, it didn't get released at the same time as the US schedule.
That's right. But very different for Pennyworth. With its new channels comes 3 episodes in one go, and then 1 episode a week, every week now for the next 7 weeks.
Yes, we will be covering it at the schedule of HBO, which, of course, is only available in the US. We've been lucky enough to get all the episodes as screeners for this season, so we're able to release it as the schedule in the US, which is few in that sense, because otherwise it's a bit like Gotham for season 1, but as well it's a little disappointing for certainly the British members of the cast and crew and production team and so on that have done a lot of this filming, that they've got season 3 coming out and they can only really promote it for the US at the moment, not in the UK. So
must be so weird to make a show and you can't sit down with your family and watch it on telly.
Yeah, definitely.
Must be very odd. But all that said, let's get into our discussion about Pennyworth, Season 3, Episodes 1, 2, and 3. We have watched all 3 episodes. We are going to cover all 3 of them on this podcast, but we're going to try and talk about each episode individually as we go through. So make sure you've watched all 3 episodes. Some things may slip in from episode 3 into our discussion of episode 1, but we're going to try and keep them separate so that you can listen to them after you've watched all 3 episodes. But if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, you can subscribe to the podcast over on tvpodcastindustries.com. Pop on over there. There's subscribe links in loads of different places. We also have a main feed for Pennyworth, the Pennyworth podcast feed, which has every episode that we've covered for Pennyworth and Gotham, as far as I remember.
Yes, so you can just search the Pennyworth podcast or TV podcast industries on any straight-laced or groovy podcast player of your choice.
Absolutely. And we want to hear your thoughts about the series Pennyworth. Please email us into feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with your thoughts to be included in our Royal Mail feedback section for Pennyworth.
I've forgotten we had called it the Royal Mail feedback section. Mm-hmm. Gosh, I've forgotten quite a lot. I'm going to be rusty as anything on this.
Well, let's see. Let's catch everybody up on where we are and everything to do with the show. How about we start there, John?
Yes, let us get into our spoiler-filled discussion of episode 1 of Pennyworth season 3, Well To Do.
That's right. That's right. This episode was written by Bruno Heller, the creator and showrunner of both Pennyworth and Gotham.
And The Mentalist.
That's right. That's right. And
that was the big one. Yeah. 7 seasons.
That's right. Yeah. But now, combined, Pennyworth and Gotham have more seasons in them, John. So
that is true.
So this is his bigger show. This episode is directed by Rob Bailey. This is the 7th episode of Pennyworth that he's done. 3 more episodes to come this season, and he also did 11 episodes of Gotham. So another fellow Gothamite continuing on the work on Pennyworth.
Definitely.
John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for episode 1 of Pennyworth season 3, Well To Do?
Sure. 5 years after the English Civil War put an end to the Raven Union, Alfie, Dave Boy and Bet Sykes are busy rounding up people with enhancement, PDubz, and delivering them to the government through Martha Wayne and Lucius Fox. Meanwhile, Thomas and Martha are surprised when they are visited by Patrick Wayne, Thomas's estranged father, who is in town on business to find a missing asset, Doctor Glub, who recently evaded and killed his CIA handler. He is accompanied by a lady called Virginia Devereaux, who is mandated to do whatever is needed. Alfie and Dave Boy have a new job to track down a missing socialite, Jessica Thistle, and return her to her parents. It's a good paying job, but Bet is distracted trying to find former Raven leader John Salt. She finds 2 former Ravens, and after killing them both, she's left with a concrete lead on John Salt. And a baby. The lads track Jessica to the commune of Sister Suzie and take the drugged-up girl back home. But after one night at home, Jessica murders her parents and turns up on Alfie's doorstep, covered in blood.
What a bloody ending to this episode.
Absolutely. Yes.
We are back in London.
Jessica looking like something out of Carrie.
Mm-hmm, exactly. We are going to talk about our top hits for this episode, our top points on this episode to kick us off. So the big thing really is that we're in a period 5 years on from the last season of Pennyworth, and we kind of get the announcement straight off the bat that the Civil War has been won mostly by Gully Troy, this enhanced human, a guy who was effectively an antagonist throughout season 2, but then they stuffed a bomb inside him, saved his life, and turned him into a super weapon to fight this battle of the English Civil War. So interesting start here that we're now 5 years later, and there's loads of enhanced humans, these PDubz, as Martha dubs them, and gets quickly slagged off by Bet Sykes, of course, for that little naming that she's given them.
Yeah, so lots of these people with enhancements all around the place, including Captain Blighty. But it's kind of, where have they come from? I actually also, the opening here with London being bombed and so on during the Civil War looked really epic. I really enjoyed that as well.
It's very cool.
For sure. But it seems as though, order has returned. The Raven Union is disbanded or in flight or in hiding. And we have here both Alfie and Dave Boy and Bet now all teamed up to round up these enhanced individuals for a small fee.
Yes,
and,
£500, John. That's a big
500,
fee.
And deliver them to Martha and Lucius.
Yeah.
For what? We don't know.
Exactly, but we do see Lucius getting his choice as to whether he will keep a particular enhanced person or not. We have that kind of opening scene really with Alfie taking in the guy with the metal arm that he doesn't have any control over, whose name doesn't matter, as he says. My name doesn't matter. It's not me doing this. It's the arm that's doing this. So he has absolutely no control over this enhanced arm that he has. But when brought into Lucius gets to choose whether he keeps him or not for experimentation, I guess, or for investigation as to where it's coming from. What do you think, John? What's your theory to start with? Think this is John Salt still out there creating enhanced people?
Well, that was that is my theory at the moment. To be honest, although we do have a slight curveball around this theory, because we do see a Dr Glub, as we learn, escaping some kind of handler here from the CIA, and this develops over time. We certainly find out here that he is connected with, linked to Wayne Industries. Is this something to do? Is this one of John Salt's former sort of head of labs or something, or that has been taken on by Wayne Industries? Is it just a Wayne Industries scientist? So we see this, which is kind of bit intriguing. Is this to do with the PDubz? Or is it something completely different here? And of course, everyone as well is sort of settling into this new rhythm as it's 5 years on as well. So the connections aren't made here in terms of this dead CIA operative turning up. But the one thing that the government does realise, now headed by Prime Minister Aziz, is it is a CIA operative. The CIA haven't come looking for that operative, therefore he must have been up to no good. So this Dr. Glub is very intriguing as to why he slit the guy's throat in order to escape from what I'm thinking is his handler at the moment for whatever reason. Yeah. So,
and that's something similar to what we saw with Lucius Fox coming over to the UK.
Yeah.
Last season, we saw that he had handlers around him all the time.
And of course, we know that John Salt is still on the run because we see Mrs. Pennyworth looking for love in the Lonely Hearts section at 5 years on again. People getting into a new rhythm. It's time for her to have a bit of rumpy pumpy, a bit of adventure in old London town. But the front headline was John Salt. So kind of a good little sort of summary of where we've come from, how the Raven Union has been defeated, and where we're at now. Which I think takes us on to our hit number 2, which is Alfie and the boys and the job. So their normal job is rounding up these PDubz. That's kind of the quick cash flow coming into Alfred's business, which he's expanded, which is this almost like a PI investigative office headed by, he's got a new general manager, and
I like him because he's kind of making sure that everything's on track, but still getting a bit of pushback from Alfie, who kind of wants to step back from the day-to-day business.
Yes.
But remember, this general manager also has to deal with Bet, who doesn't seem to be really that willing to take missions from anybody at all.
Definitely. But they're given a new job, this missing person called Jessica Thistle, that Alfie investigates. It is her nanny, or the nanny of the household, because she's 18. So if she still needs a nanny at that age, then God help her.
Yeah, but she does say she's been her nanny since she was about 2. So,
exactly.
Yeah. So just like Pennyworth, just like Alfred becomes effectively nanny to Bruce Wayne up until he's in his 40s and 50s. We kind of have that with this character here, this nanny who's still a member of their household in some way.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand it, but nonetheless, I guess that's what rich people, they need to spend their money, so the nanny stays on. And because that's the point, Jessica's parents are very rich, and her father heads up Thistle Industries as well. So very important. And we get a great introduction, though, as this investigation goes through. Alfie goes to the nightclub where she went missing, but ends up at this happy cult or commune of Sister Suzie, which Sister Suzie I loved. She is very well known on British TV. I think she used to be in The Bill. But I loved the potty mouth on Sister Suzie. She kind of goes from being a Zen-focused head of this commune to, when being challenged, being very, very potty mouthed. Lots of effing and blinding going on. Really.
Yeah, she was absolutely hilarious, wasn't she?
Yeah.
You know, being the spiritual leader of this hippie cult, and the kind of effing and blinding that comes out of her just to get rid of Alfie and Dave Boy who've come in.
As she says to Robert, you know, they've interrupted the meditation. So really like
Hippie
this.
Robert's very fun as well.
But
yeah.
I love that, you know, ultimately she says she's got connections, but that doesn't wash with Alfie. And then it's, well, if she agrees and wants to, of course she can take her. They go to Jessica's room, say, do you want to leave? She says no. And they take her anyway. And she's just left there. Sister Suzie. They get Jessica back to her parents as well. But the interesting thing we see here is that the Thistle house is being watched. An unmarked car is on the other side of the road. Or that's where the camera focuses.
Yes.
So yes, interesting.
As she's being left home. But she doesn't really want to go home at all, even after being taken away from this hippie commune, effectively. So Alfie, to calm her down, gives her his phone number and home address, which is why, after she murders her parents, she ends off at Alfie's doorstep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good ending. I also just like the image of her parents sort of stumbling out the front door, with Jessica then sort of entering that door frame, just covered in blood with a big knife.
Yeah.
But she manages to get herself to Alfie's, where he takes her in, and so yeah, it's again, it's a nice violent aspect being introduced into Pennyworth here. I mean, it's always had that little tinge, you know, of the violence of this world. So yeah, it was really good.
Absolutely. I don't really know how she made it all the way across the city, covered in blood, carrying a knife, all the way over to Alfie's house. I don't think he lives in the same neighbourhood as the Thistles.
No, not really. Alfie and his mother are certainly in a terraced house.
Yes.
And this was very much the burbs, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely.
The really big house burbs as well.
So that kind of sets up our murder mystery, I guess, for the season.
Well, I'm guessing so.
Yeah.
You know, why did this happen? Was it Sister Suzie and Robert from the commune?
Maybe.
Or is it something else? And I think that brings us on to our top hit number 3, because within all of this, we have Martha and Thomas Wayne with their daughter Samantha. Thomas Wayne is a doctor now, very much moving towards Gotham and America. And Martha is this field officer with Lucius Fox in MI5. What we do find out, though, is that Thomas believes that she works in the public records office and not with MI5. And it's to do with a deal that they made to get out of the dangerous business that they were in once their daughter Samantha was born. But another sort of left field tackle coming into this relationship is the visit of Patrick Wayne, Thomas's sort of estranged father, really. He really kind of dislikes and hates his father. So a lot of history here that we don't really get to hear, but Patrick Wayne is, at least on the face of it, starts to say that he's here to try and fix this relationship with his son. On the face of it,
meet his granddaughter,
meet Martha, who's managed to get Thomas settled down. But ultimately, what we see here is he begins to open up a bit more to Thomas around his US government connections, linked to the dead handler, and also this lost asset of Dr Glub in the UK is looking to retrieve him before the British government does. So, and as a result of this, Thomas grudgingly sort of finds out about the lie that is Martha's public records office job, and realizes that she's more active as a field officer, not desk-based in MI5.
Yeah, but it's 99% desk-based.
Yes.
95%, maybe 93%.
Well, I felt they overcomplicated this because he's saying to Patrick, public records office, but actually he knows that she works for MI5, but that it's purely a desk base.
Yeah.
And there's no danger. There's no chance that she will get into trouble, get hurt now that they have the daughter. And that's the arrangement that they came to.
Yeah.
But there's more of a field element to this job, and she reports directly to the Prime Minister.
Yes.
So it has a bit more threat and danger to it that Thomas would have known about. So that kind of just riles him up slightly. You know, he tries to subdue that as though, so, you know, by saying to his father, well, your intel's wrong, you know, but
but he's still hiding bits of it from his father. He's still got that knowledge of what's going on with Martha. But I do really love Martha Wayne. Really, really like her turn of phrase. As I say, her saying it's a 95% desk job. 95% of the time I'm there at desk. Well, technically the other 5% could be the most dangerous parts of any job, but she's still saying from a percentage point of view, I am just sitting at a desk, but actually she has some serious danger going on. You know, we saw her out there collecting the people with enhancements. That could go wildly wrong, and she's out there in the field doing that work. So she's obviously bending the truth quite a bit, but I do like that's always been a thing of Martha's anyway. She's her own woman, willing to do the work that's required of her.
Well, that's it. And the other intriguing thing with the pop-up of Patrick Wayne is the pop-up with him of this unknown woman to Thomas, of Virginia Devereaux, who is being portrayed here as, you know, a friend of Patrick's,
more than a friend,
accompanying him, going to be doing a bit of shopping, a bit of socializing, and so on. But looking, you know, as we see later, where she gives him a right crack across the face to snap him out of it. Snap out of it. Then, you know, she's a tough cookie and is mandated to do, as I said, whatever is needed, which includes potentially giving the order for something to happen against the Thistles.
Yes, she does seem to have that connection there. You hear her giving that order. And yeah, she seems to have Thomas Wayne, the head of Wayne Enterprises, you know, under her thumb completely.
I guess in a sense she is his handler, CIA mandated. So she's the one that calls the shots in relation to getting this Dr Glub back.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Is it because of the amount of government contracts that Wayne Enterprises have? Is that why she has the hold over them? Does he actually work directly for the CIA and not for Wayne Enterprises? You know, it's quite interesting that she has that kind of level of control over someone that you would expect, and we've heard in the past, is in full control of everything that goes on in his life. So let's see how that one plays out as the season goes on. One other thing we really got to talk about in this episode is Bet's mission, Bet's own mission, because she takes it upon herself to search for the former members of the Raven Union in her need really to capture John Salt after he got away from her and from the rest of the team last season. Loved this stuff once again. Great to see Paloma Faith in this role. She's so good brilliant on screen. Yeah. From the initial moments where you see that she's actually working with Dave Boy and Alfie now. I love the bit of banter between Bet and Dave Boy and Alfie at the beginning where Bet's kind of, you know, jibing at him for once having some kind of relationship with Martha in the past. Yes. I'm just kind of surprised they brought that up on the show now that we have the family unit of Thomas and Martha and Samantha in living together at home. I'm surprised they brought that back up to us as the audience, just as a reminder again. Remember, there was something that went on between those two.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was good. I mean, I love that. I love Bet sort of tracking down Miss Dixon and then finally holding her and her husband hostage.
Yeah.
She obviously has a massive dislike for geography teachers, in her interrogation, but the interrogation doesn't really... she ties them up and just leaves them because they're sticking to their false persona, which is they're no longer ravens, they've moved on, and so on.
And they know nothing about it at all.
Know nothing about it at all.
I do like that Bet hogtied Mrs. Dixon and leaves her on the couch the whole time throughout this really uncomfortable position throughout the day. And I love that she's talking to the baby, Julie, where she's saying to her, do you know where John Salt is? I thought that was really cute. And then it turns out Bet's absolutely right. They haven't changed. They have this cool wardrobe full, I suppose, of former Raven guns and equipment, but seems reasonably live, right? It seems like they've kept all this stuff. They are still an underground section of the Raven Union because she finds this clue to where John Salt could be.
Absolutely.
This book with all these dates and times.
Yeah.
And all these connections to John Salt. So she's now really on the trail of John Salt.
Yeah, and the interesting thing here then is when she returns to Alfie's office with baby Julia, all covered in blood after killing the Dixons in a standoff.
Yeah.
Alfie won't help Bet find John Salt or follow this ledger, the information in this ledger. He's like, that's not what he wants to do. And effectively gives her carte blanche to go off and do that.
Exactly.
So that's kind of interesting that we don't have Alfie involved here, but I'm suspecting their routes will cross at some point.
Yeah, I'd hope so.
Yeah.
Or else Bet's just disappeared from the season, which I would not enjoy.
No, exactly. She's great.
Always like seeing Bet. I think that's the main points from the episode. Anything else about the episode you want to talk about, John?
No, nothing from me.
We have to return to an old standard from the Pennyworth podcast. We have to talk about some of the translations, I suppose, that need to come from the Cockney language, Cockney London language of Alfie, Dave Boy, everybody on screen, really. Mostly from Alfie. He tends to use lots of Cockney phrases. A couple of ones that I picked up. When he's talking to the PDub that he's arresting, he says to him it's going to be 500 quid, but if you were dead, it's only a pony. A pony is £25.
Yes.
Yeah, so a significant drop-off if he kills off one of the PDubs. We have the renaming of Gully Troy as Captain Blighty. So Blighty is another name for Britain, from particularly used during World War I. So after this English Civil War, he's been renamed Captain Blighty. So Captain Britain, basically, is where that's coming from, which I really liked.
Yeah.
Another one from Alfie saying, my life's pucker, which just means my life's great.
Yeah.
You're getting money for jam was another one, which is another way of saying money for old rope. So money for easy money, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Any more?
Two more.
Oh, off you go.
Two more. One more from Dave Boy, which is where he says, no point, I'm only greeting about it. That's a Scottish phrase meaning no point moaning about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. And last one is from Bet. I think she's used this before in a previous season, which is, I'm just going to scrag him. And scrag him means kill him, but actually it means brutally assault. So brutally kill someone is to scrag him. So there you go. That's your notes and Cockney translations from this episode.
Excellent stuff.
I think it's important to keep these in.
It is, actually, because I'd forgotten what a pony was in monetary terms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Good stuff. What did you think overall about episode 1, John?
I thought this was, pretty good opening. I'd give it 3 hippie cults out of 5. I mean, for me, my favourite parts of this was Sister Suzie and Bet. Really, really enjoyed seeing Bet back in action. It's a shame that she's kind of going off on her own and not with Alfie and Dave Boy, because I really liked that banter. There's the intrigue around the Thistle girl, Jessica, and the murder of her parents, and all linking in with CIA, this Doctor Glub, and Wayne Enterprises, importantly.
Yep.
I wonder if talking about, the changes at Martha and Thomas's house, now that their daughter Samantha is 5 years older, Thomas Wayne as a doctor, Martha leading a little bit of a double life in terms of her job, that, the arrival of Patrick Wayne with Virginia Devereaux, who seems to be more connected to the CIA as a handler of him to get this asset, whether that's going to disrupt and affect this seemingly tranquil family life of Martha and Thomas Wayne. Also, just to note that Mrs. Pennyworth is their nanny in this case. So lots of nannies going on in this episode. Nanny central, dare I say it.
Yeah, but we didn't even mention it. I know it may seem surprising for people that haven't listened to the last couple of seasons of the Pennyworth podcast, but didn't even mention the fact that this is Samantha Wayne. We knew she was pregnant last season. We knew she gave birth to Samantha Wayne, a daughter, effectively, rather than Bruce Wayne, a son. We don't know of any existing sister that Bruce Wayne had, so we're still completely confused as to who Samantha is. This could just be a completely alternate universe where Bruce Wayne does have a sister, because DC do that very often in their stories, completely different universes, just tiny things changed. So that
or is it altering the whole DC Batverse canon?
No, there's no such thing. There's no such thing. Loads of different stories, loads of different types of things. But it could be that Samantha grows up to become Batgirl, Batwoman.
Well, that's it. It's interesting, isn't it? It's almost like you could imagine this happening at Marvel and someone having a fit.
Yeah.
Because it messed things up.
Absolutely.
From the neat straight edges.
Yeah, absolutely. It's massively different. We cover lots of Marvel shows and TV podcast industries, and lots of the fans are all about the canon. Everything has to stick to the canon. This is not what happens in DC.
And
really certainly not what happens in Pennyworth. Even just simply to mention again, we had this move on of 5 years. We're now in the 70s roughly, but this is DC's 70s. So there are still people with mobile phones walking around, which didn't exist in the 70s. So once again, DC's version of the 70s is different to real world version of the 70s.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, my only thing with this episode, I would say, is I felt a little bit bamboozled with everything going on. Not to say that it was scattergun approach, but because setting up the new season, tying off things from the previous one, I just wonder, and it all just will depend on how it plays out, but I just wonder, whether they could have just focused around the Raven stuff, and John Salt, and just with Jessica's storyline, that was a little bit thinner on the ground, like with the introduction of Patrick Wayne in here, with everything that happened with Thomas and Martha, with the summary of the English Civil War in 1 minute, with the Raven still on the loose, John Salt, the Lonely Hearts of Mrs. Pennyworth, because even though it's small, it doesn't seem like it's connected. There's something about Bruno Heller's writing that sometimes these little things come in and play later on. So I felt there was a lot going on. And so I just wonder maybe it could have been a little bit simpler for me.
I think it could have been tighter. There's bound to be stuff that we missed from this episode because so much was put into one episode. It's just an hour and they're trying to cover off every single character we've met in the past. Even Alfie's former girlfriend Sandra is now a famous singer with billboards everywhere and her song playing everywhere. That's something that is following on from last season when Alfie dumped her to move to America and then didn't move to America. And now she's a famous singer in the UK, but it's told in these really quick snapshots, pushed in with 3 or 4 major storylines that they're trying to deal with.
Yes.
I think that explains to me why they've put 3 episodes out in the first day, so that you don't go away at the end of this episode with just that moment with Jessica killing her parents and then have to come back next week to find out more.
Agrees.
Because now you can kind of see it as one big movie in the 3 episodes.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think it's a smart move to have released the first 3 episodes.
And speaking of which, let's go on to our discussion about episode 2, Many Clouds.
Yes.
This episode was written by John Stevens, former executive producer on Gotham. Was kind of a lead producer on the last couple of seasons of Gotham as well.
Yeah.
He was very heavily involved in the show and has been involved in Pennyworth for the last couple of seasons. And this episode was also directed by Rob Bailey, who directed the first episode of this season.
Yes, exactly.
John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Season 3, Episode 2, Many Clouds?
Sure. The mystery of the Thistle's death continues at the highest level of government as Prime Minister Aziz takes an active interest in the case when connections are made to the CIA activity in England by Martha and Lucius Fox. Alfie and Dave Boy move Jessica into hiding after an attempted kidnap from the hospital where she was being held. They move her to a safe house owned by Sandra, Alpha's former love interest and currently number 3 in the music charts. Meanwhile, in an attempt to build back their relationship, Thomas offers to help his father find his missing asset, and suggests putting Alfred Pennyworth on the case. But as things begin to improve between his father, they seem to deteriorate between him and Martha, as he confronts her about her real job in the field with MI5, that she has been keeping secret from him since the birth of their daughter. As Martha's job takes her to the commune of Sister Suzie, she learns that a new psychotropic drug developed by Dr Glub was trialled on the members of the commune. Before she can garner more information, the CIA barge in, killing Sister Suzie and almost taking out Martha, before Alfie and Dave Boy show up in the nick of time to dispatch the secret servicemen. Realizing Jessica was exposed to the drug, Alfie and Dave Boy race to Sandra's. As they get there, Dave Boy shoots Jessica dead to protect Sandra, but he can't help her partied-out, dead, murdered friends.
Oh no.
Yes.
Another dark end
Just
to
a bit.
another episode.
Well, by the end of this episode, I think Jessica's got a bigger sort of murder count than Jeffrey Dahmer, from what I can see. She's like happy-go-lucky with a carving knife.
Absolutely. And I also think a lot of this cast need to move over to The Walking Dead. Alfie, Dave Boy, Martha, Bet have all done amazing quick headshots as well. You know, that's it. Double tap or quick headshot.
Yeah.
Take out all the zombies. So maybe a crossover there in the future.
Well, certainly given Sandra's apartment, it almost felt a little Shining going on, that it was, you know, that Sandra's friends from the music industry all partying whilst this traumatized girl has been dumped by Alfie and Dave Boy there. And then she gets her trigger to make her go all stabby McStabby.
Well, yeah. Let's start off there, I think, with the trigger. Itself. So Caravans and Candlesticks, the song by Sandra that has now been going around my head for about a week and a half since we got the previews for this show.
Number 3 in the music charts.
Yeah. That's a really interesting trigger to choose, isn't it? You'd presume a song that's number 3 in the music charts is going to be played everywhere across the country, pretty much. It's on heavy rotation at the time. Let's think about radio stations in the 70s.
Exactly.
So what happens if Jessica goes to her corner shop to get a can of Coke or something, and that song is playing in the background? Does she kill the person behind the counter? Is that what happens?
I'm guessing so. Well, and also from episode 1, we know now that the trigger was the ice cream van that was playing Sandra's tune in the ice cream van fashion.
Was it though?
It must have been.
I feel like that was just an indication that it was playing on the radio at the time, and they happened to have the radio on in the house at the same time.
So if all of Susie's commune people were from, you know, the upper class, effectively that whole street could have been rivers of blood, I guess, with lots of people stabbing as the ice cream van sort of playing its tune whizzes past.
Well, yeah, I would guess here that the point is that she's the one that had the drug tested on her.
Yes.
And that the Thistles were the target.
Definitely.
But it does seem odd that this song will trigger her to kill anything in her way. Anyway, so if they'd been playing the song at a party in the commune, potentially she could have killed everybody else in the commune, would be the big concern.
Yeah, I mean, it's targeted in the sense of the person they gave the drug to, and that was it. But you're right. If she had recovered fully and was walking around central London and walked past a record shop that was blaring it out, I guess it would have been more than the post boxes and buses that were read.
Well, yes, Bloodbath on Regent Street, I guess.
I guess so.
But yes, Caravan and Candlesticks, the new murder theme for London in the 70s, basically.
Yeah. But
poor Sandra. That's not a great legacy to have.
No, exactly. And poor Sandra, because effectively she is almost killed. It's only with Dave Boy shooting Jessica directly in the head, saving Sandra. But all her mates, all her friends, all her associates from the music industry, all just wiped out by little old Jessica.
Yeah, but at least her new boyfriend, who was number 6 in the charts, is also wiped out here. That's helpful for Alfie, isn't it?
I'm guessing so.
I could see a little jealousy there from Alfie,
definitely.
Even though he's the one that broke it up. You can tell he still has a thing for Sandra, though.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he's ruining that call that he made there for sure.
Yeah. Where else do you want to go in the episode? Let's move around. Let's talk about some of the other big fun things that happened in this episode, because this one was, I think, a better episode than the first episode. I enjoyed this one a lot more. Certainly enjoyed the moments where Dave Boy was trying to help Jessica in the to get out of the hospital that she was in,
awesome.
And St. Olaf's, where we have that battle down the stairs. The reason I probably liked it more is because it doesn't go the way you expect it to. You totally expect the hero to grab the wheelchair after he's dispatched the member of the CIA or the person that's trying to kidnap her. But he misses it. And poor Jessica in the wheelchair goes down 2 flights of stairs, but luckily into a softened room of cloths and towels.
But all of that whole, because it's 2 flights. So she goes down the first set and then turns the corner facing. It almost reminds me of, a Naked Gun type sketch but rather than O.J. Simpson going down the stairs and flying off, it's like she goes down the stairs, stays in the chair. The chair doesn't unbalance in any way, and then sends her into, soft pillows await her effectively that she careers into. Yeah. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was good fun. As we see again another CIA member trying to kidnap her from the hospital ward that she is being held at after this after the murder of her parents. Yeah,
absolutely. And followed by Dave Boy, played by Ryan Fletcher, probably his best moment that we've had in the last couple of seasons, where he's standing in the lift after saving Jessica. The door opens with a man on the other side of it, Dave Boy covered in blood. The man on the other side going, "Are you okay?" And Dave going, "Well, are you a doctor? What's it to you?" And he goes, "Well, actually, I am. As in, you're in a hospital."
Yeah, exactly.
And just the incredulity of Dave Boy kind of looking at this guy, going, "What's he doing? Either you get into the lift or stay out. I've got things to do." Basically, I love how Ryan Fletcher delivers that. Really good fun.
Yeah, I think his delivery has been absolutely brilliant so far. Yeah.
And he's gotten through 2 episodes without getting shot.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
A lot of drinking, though.
Of course.
But that's the character. I think the other side of this, we find out that the nanny that hired Alfie and set him on the investigation of Jessica Thistle was false. She was an actress.
Yes.
Who was paid to do it. But the other thing I then really liked was with these new snippets of information coming out, we've both got Alfie looking into this, but also Lucius and Martha as well, because there's an active interest in this from Prime Minister Aziz, given episode 1 with the dead CIA operative on the autopsy table, after being killed by Doctor Glub. So there's a real sort of high level interest here, and I like that they investigate the death of the Thistles and this US connection, and they're looking essentially for rich hippies, and effectively with the involvement of Lucius, who looks at the autopsy results from the dead CIA operative, that there is this particular sort of trace element on the hands and so on, where it's effectively some kind of drug. Yeah. So they're looking for rich hippies, and for me, it all nicely comes together back at Sister Susie's, also known as Susan Cardigan, as we hear, where she gives her real name.
That's right.
Again, just the indignation that Martha has broken into the place, tries to knock her out, is really having a go at her. Again, lots of real fruity language being thrown at Martha, where we get, in a sense, actually what's happened. That Dr. Glub and ultimately the American CIA handlers have messed up here, because they're trialing a new psychotropic drug with this commune and checking it out. Yeah. There is this link with Wayne Enterprises as well, because what we see is then 2 CIA goons showing up, killing poor Sister Suzie. So I must say, I'm sad to have lost Sister Suzie so early. I thought she was a great character. Yeah. And almost taking Martha out as well. But Alfie, his line of investigation had brought him back to Sister Suzie, so was able to take them out. But you've got 2 dead CIA agents there. But in all that commotion, in that fight, a fake panel has been blown out, and you see a camera filming the use or the administration of this new psychotropic drug with a Wayne Enterprises logo on it.
Exactly.
This drug seemingly to create more efficient killers. Yeah. And as soon as they look through the other material in this sort of hidden secret room, which then leads them to have to race off to Sandra's because Jessica is pumped full of this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that it kind of connects with Martha's suspicions that we saw from last episode about Patrick Wayne and why he's over here.
Yes.
I love that when the conversation was going on between Thomas and Martha last episode, when he was saying, "My father told me that you have a license to kill and that you're a deep cover agent." Instantly, Martha went, "Hang on a second. Why is your father even interested in this?
Exactly.
How does he have that information?" And Thomas was getting indignant about the fact that she may have lied to him, but she's posing the obvious question. Hang on. Why would your father, who lives in America and runs Wayne Enterprises, know all this about me?
Yes.
And why is he interested? And now connecting back to that is this camera with Wayne Enterprises on it, and definitely some serious involvement here from Patrick Wayne's company.
Yes, definitely. The one thing I would say is Sister Suzie certainly went out with style and grace after the bullet went through her forehead, because with all the kind of the light fabrics that were draped down, she kind of just
danced.
She kind of danced with them as she fell to the ground. I thought it was quite artistic, really.
It certainly was.
Quite meditative.
Died the way she always lived, I guess.
Exactly.
Except the disdain that she has for the hippies that surround her, in that she would sell off their hippie experience to the CIA for extra money, did make me laugh. It's like, well, they wanted to test some drugs. I was like, yeah, no problem at all. Why not? But that is who she's connected to. Remember back in episode 1, the reason why she was saying to Alfie and Dave Boy to get out, because I've got serious connections. She was saying that she's connected to the CIA as well. So
exactly.
Just tying that back. I want to also quickly talk about Mrs. P's date in this episode, because I did think it was very funny. Poor Mrs. P. She had to put up with Mr. P, Mr. Pennyworth, for so many years, who was a difficult man to live with, even though she loved him. They had a loving relationship, but he was a difficult man to put up with, had very strict rules, and also ended off being basically a British Nazi. A very difficult thing to find out about your husband. And now it's been 5 years, so she wants to put herself back out there, and ends off on a date with Frederick. A man of the world, a man who knows how to write a Lonely Hearts ad with lots of hidden meaning in there.
Yes.
And poor Mrs. Pennyworth, who's never been on a date outside of her husband, of course can't decode the seize the day underlying meaning of that, which is, well, have sex today is what that means to people that know this code. Yeah,
Frederick is game for a bunk up, as he says, or a bit of how's your father, or a bit of slap and tickle, rough and tumble. Rumpy pumpy.
All right, and all Mrs. P wanted was a good cake and a nice cup of tea and a good chat with somebody new to start off a relationship. I do love that we see her running very quickly out from the tea house, shouting pervert behind her.
Yeah.
Not Frederick.
Or she will become the next Mrs. Spicer.
Maybe. Wow, Mrs. Spicer from season 1 of Pennyworth.
Mr. and Mrs. Spicer.
Mr. and Mrs. Spicer, yes. That may have been the kind of people that Frederick would normally attract.
Yeah, I'm guessing so.
But I suppose in some ways a sad scene for poor Mrs. P, but at least she's getting herself out there. You have to go through the bad times to find someone good.
Exactly.
So at least she's trying. Much to the dislike of Alfie, we see that there's a little bit of a game of cat and mouse going on with Alfie and his mom, where she's hiding his gun every time because she wants him to get out of the life that he's in. And he's talking about this to his general manager, saying, well, she's a pretty attractive woman. She's been on her own for 5 years. She's probably got a lot of suitors. And Alfie goes, she's not an attractive woman. She's my mum.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't think he likes the idea of change.
He also finds out from Thomas Wayne, who lets slip that Mrs. Pennyworth, it's her day off today.
Yeah.
Because she uses going to Thomas and Martha's as cover.
Yeah.
And that's as Thomas is visiting Alfie to see if he will do the work for his father at Wayne Enterprises,
exactly.
That investigation. So, yeah. He's being a protective son.
He certainly is.
Maybe overly protective.
100% overly protective. Yeah, she needs to get on with her life and be able to have a life of her own. He is still living there at, I guess, late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
For Alfie.
He needs to find a place with all this money.
He
must be
does.
minted.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he bought Wayne Manor in the end.
Maybe he owns Wayne Manor with the amount of money he's making, definitely. He certainly seems to be making money hand over fist this season. Anything else about the episode that you want to talk about, John?
No, nothing from me.
Well, I guess that just leaves us with a bit of Cockney slang to decode for the episode, John.
Yes.
Yeah. First one I have is can't leave her on her Todd.
On her own.
Can't leave her on her own, exactly. Someone fitted her up. That's another one. She's been stitched up.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's been stitched up. Last one, I kept stum.
Kept quiet.
Yes. So those are the three that I found in the episode.
Yeah. Well, there was also Frederick's game for a bunk up.
Aye.
So, as I say,
ready for a bit of rumpy pumpy.
Yeah. Bit of love making.
Yes. Those are the translations for this episode. Any ones that we may have missed that you want translated, make sure you email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with those. I know we had a couple in last season that we'd missed, so share them with us. We'll see if we can translate them to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Or at least just say them out loud. Maybe that'll be a bit of fun.
Yeah.
Overall, John, what did you think of episode 2 of Pennyworth season 3?
Yeah, I really like this episode. I give it 3.5 bloody musics out of 5. I think, again, I loved Jessica's sort of turn with this psychotropic drug. I liked how that just kind of unfolded, actually quite quickly, really. Mm-hmm. This is something I feel could have possibly been held back a bit for some later episodes. This story is moving on fast at pace. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any doubt of Virginia and who she is, and why Patrick Wayne is there. Again, there's some really interesting bits here. In a sense, almost the prudish Alfred Pennyworth protecting his mother because he doesn't want to think of his mum having sex or dating another guy. You also have Thomas's confrontation of Martha about her true job, and ultimately in the end, it's actually, there's not too much of an extension of what her job was. It's just she goes out into the field a bit more. So there's a bit more risk for her job.
Absolutely.
But he seems to take that really quite personally and as a front. So I think he needs to chill out, does old Thomas.
A little bit. I feel like that license to kill that she has is probably the tipping point.
Yes.
That's something you don't give unless someone needs it. in the UK. So he knows what she was like when she was in the war. She was willing to go all out during the war. So he doesn't want to leave poor Samantha without a mother. So thought the arrangement that they had would guarantee that both of them are now working in a much safer environment for their new child. So,
definitely.
So I can see why. I was happy that he seemed to have much more knowledge of what her job actually was than he was letting on to his father. I thought he was being completely left in the dark and she was living this complete double life, but they did have an understanding of what was going on.
Yes.
But just not, again, that she had a license to kill and could be in harm's way.
Yeah. And
was significantly in harm's way in this episode. She did almost die in this episode when she went to confront Suzie.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And of course, R.I.P. Sister Suzie,
Absolutely.
aka Susan Cardigan.
Yes. You will be missed.
You will be missed. A short, sharp, and like a firework, you entered Pennyworth as you left.
Exactly.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get into the third part of our epic Pennyworth coverage for episode 3, Comply or Die. This episode was written by Robert Hull, another Gotham alumni. He did 7 episodes of Gotham over its run.
Wow.
Yeah. So another former Gothamite.
Yes.
Coming on over here, working with Bruno Heller. This episode was directed by John East. This is his 4th episode of Pennyworth. He directed an episode in season 1, 2 in season 2, and he's doing 2 in season 3 as well.
Yes.
John East is a great British director. He's done lots and lots of great TV shows, including Killing Eve. He did Last Kingdom as well.
Yes. Whitechapel.
That's right.
And also involved in the sort of redo of Lost in Space as well, which I absolutely enjoyed.
It's really good. Yeah, it was a really good show for the 3 seasons. Really good sci-fi.
Yeah.
Good stuff. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for episode 3 of Pennyworth Season 3, Comply or Die?
Sure. At Lucius Fox's secret underground laboratory and home to all the captured PDubz, Gully Troy, a.k.a. Captain Blighty, a.k.a. hero of the English Civil War and victor over the Ravens, is sad and feels trapped. Mm-hmm. He escapes the secret base to try and regain some normality, and Alfie is assigned to track him down before he does any serious damage. With Alfie otherwise busy, Dave Boy attends the funeral of Jessica's parents as he becomes racked with guilt and booze after shooting Jessica dead. As he drinks through the funeral service, he makes a sudden and very public admission that he killed Jessica, sending the funeral and coffin into a spin, and is thrown out of the church. Despite the chaos, Dave Boy seems to have made an unexpected friend. After a frank conversation with Martha about her ongoing investigation into Doctor Glub, Jessica Thistle, the CIA, and Wayne Enterprises, Thomas Wayne tells his father Patrick everything that he knows. Patrick passes this to Virginia Devereaux, who becomes spooked and drugs Thomas. At evening dinner with Martha, he attempts to kill Martha after he takes a phone call to the tune of Sandra's Number 3. Martha is stabbed by Thomas and struggles to fend off Thomas and stay alive. She is only saved by Mrs. Pennyworth's intervention after she knocks out Thomas with a massive candle holder.
Mrs. Pennyworth in the dining room with the candlestick.
Exactly. It may have been a lamp, I don't know, but it was certainly a weighty implement.
Yes, although it would make sense with caravan and candlesticks if it was a candlestick.
Exactly.
That she used. And I think this is a really good episode.
Yeah,
another really good one. But again, each episode getting better from the previous one for me.
Yeah, it is for me as well. And I think it just reiterates what we said earlier about it was, stroke of genius to kind of lump these together, because I think it gives it more sort of time with these numerous threads that are here.
Absolutely.
And it's beginning to sort of, play out with the main threads now.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is we've not really had anything from Bet for the last 2 episodes, which is a shame.
It certainly is. I'm hoping that we're going to get maybe even a Bet-centric episode to see what's happening with her searching out John Salt as the episodes go on, because we've heard nothing since that first episode, as you said, about what actually is happening. We know that she's got a great lead. He was on the front of the newspaper, so John Salt is present in the background, I guess, but it'll be great to see what the journey she's gone on, possibly with Julie, her new baby, that she's been carrying around with her. I don't really know what happened with Julie either.
No, I don't know what happened with Julie, but it could be, given the nature of Pennyworth, how eccentric it can be. And certainly now that John Stevens is an executive producer and indeed writer for the show, and given his tendencies in Gotham,
it's quite eccentric in Gotham too.
Well, yes, very, very manic type input, I think, to Gotham, which it really was good. You know, there's nothing negative in that. I could imagine that Bet has a baby carrier strapped to her, and it's like a tag team.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Almost.
It'd be interesting.
She's going into the field, into battle almost with this baby Julia.
I could see it. Her carrying a gun in each hand and a baby strapped to her front. Yeah, that could be kind of cool. I could definitely see it happen. Definitely two moments in this episode that reminded me of Gotham and some of the crazy storylines that were in there. And we'll talk about one of them first up, I think. Let's talk about Gully Troy and what's going on with him. Poor sad Gully Troy, the Captain Britain, as we were saying before, Captain Blighty. Held up as this kind of leader that won the war, but he's effectively trapped in this basement with all of these other people with enhancements. We see the guy that was captured in the first episode in there with all these other people with enhancements. We see a woman that's able to hypnotize people with her stare. She hypnotizes Lucious, but he has these glasses that he's able to put onto her to block that hypnosis.
Yeah, that was really cool. I actually love just the whole look and feel of him going into the secret entrance.
Cool, yeah.
Down to this lab.
Yeah, it reminded me of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. from the 60s comic books version,
exactly.
and Man from U.N.C.L.E., those kind of 60s and 70s TV shows. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it even reminds me of The Dark Knight with because Wayne Manor's destroyed after the Batman Begins. Just going into that shipping container and down into the underground sort of secret base. Yes. Yeah, so really enjoyed this feel, and I thought it was done really well. But yeah, Gully Troy, very, very sad, feeling very trapped. Yeah, not really appreciating, what he's done. It's not really giving him succor, so to speak,
Yeah. I will say, though, it feels like a very dangerous job for Lucious to have every day going in, especially someone that can hypnotize him. What if she had decided to be the one to break out? She literally got inside his head in about 3.5 seconds.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. And also how quickly Gully Troy gets out of this situation. He wants to go. He needs Lucious's eyes to be able to get out and into that lift. So he just grabs Lucious by the head, puts his face towards the scanner, and then he's off. He's free in the streets. And this is a John Stevens moment. This is a Gotham moment, definitely. As Gully Troy comes out in the street, you hear the police coming to try and stop him. There's a big explosion going on, and then he effectively whips a police car over his head, over the train behind, and the police car explodes in the background. That felt very Gotham to me.
It did to me, but it felt really good as well. Like, I just loved the whole set there, or the scene with the train. Again, it's like with Gotham, there's a timelessness to this. You've got quite a modern train going across the viaduct, but then everything else almost looks 1930s still,
right?
Or early 40s.
Right.
So I really enjoy that. Even the police car seemed more modern than the neighborhood that it was in. So I thought that was a nicely framed scene.
It really was.
It's even the opening scene with the Battle of London. You see all that happening. Remember from the first 2 episodes, very much still like the idea of smokestacks around London. But when it showed it 5 years on, it was like the smokestacks were kind of like gleaming and modern, very different and new modern skyscrapers around the city as well.
Right.
So again, I like that they've still got that set design about it.
Yeah, you can't really place it. You think it's around the 70s kind of idea, but not really too sure. Taking loads of inspiration from various different things. And of course, as we said before on the show, this is DC's version of London in a 70s kind of era where it takes in loads of things that may not be there in the real 70s of the UK. I suppose, interestingly, Bruno Heller, the showrunner for the show and executive producer and lead writer for the show, this is where he grew up. He was born in 1960 and grew up in London in the 70s, so he'd have lots of memories of what London was like at the time, but merging it in with this DC world as well, which I like. Really good stuff. Then we get Gully Troy going off to effectively hole up for the day in a bookies, watching the horse racing, and take everybody in the bookies hostage while he's in there for the day with a case of whiskey. Yeah. And Alfie sent in to retrieve him. That's what they use Alfie for. It's a good bit of money that he gets for the job. I like that he effectively doubles his money, because he says, this guy's probably willing to kill me. I did sleep with his wife after all.
Yeah, exactly.
But they have a bit of a heart-to-heart, which I really liked, because I really liked Alfie's answer when asked by Gully Troy, why would my wife go for you instead of me? And he goes, well, I didn't get drunk all the time and beat her, which is pretty important in a relationship.
Yes, exactly.
So a little bit of realism coming home to Gully Troy. And then everybody else in the bookies kind of take an issue with Gully Troy ruining their betting day, particularly the guy who just had a 50-1 loss as far as he's concerned. If Gully wasn't there, he would have placed a bet on that horse. And because of him, Alfie's able to stop Gully, because he's got that little switch in his back that turns him off or resets him for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so Alfie manages to get this kill switch that Lucious has told him about, even though Gully knows it's there and is trying to, he knows that's the game here, but Alfie manages to get to it. But with all the punters kicking off, it becomes a race against time for Alfie to deal with them, because there's only 5 minutes until that kill switch actually does kill Gully Troy. Yeah. He needs to be rebooted and charged back up by Lucius in his special sort of vehicle. Yes, yeah. Again, another fun touch with that he's actually awake the whole time and can hear the whole conversation going on. So when Alfie's kind of criticizing him, he's like, I can hear you. But I love how they build this up. I do think the ticking timer that they set up was really good, because once he's switched off, there's only 5 minutes to get him back. He may die if you don't get him back to charge him back up with the machine. So he switches him off, and then it turns into a battle between Alfie and all the other punters in the bookies. And Alfie only has a certain amount of time to take them all out before getting Gully Troy back to be charged up. I thought that added that extra bit of tension. Yeah, and ultimately saved by Lucius.
Yeah,
I did
just by opening the door, though. He didn't really get involved in the fight.
No, exactly. But I did like as well with Gully back at the recharge station, still kind of low powered. Lucius and Alfie are talking about him, and he's like, I can still hear you. I thought that was a nice little touch.
That was really good.
I think as well here, Davy Boy is not with Alfie. They've gone off drinking. But Dave Boy really wants to solve the Jessica Thistle case, because he's seeing here that it's not fair how Jessica is being portrayed. There's elements of guilt here from shooting her in the head. That's how these two split up here. And we then get to our hit number 2. Davy Boy goes to the Thistle funeral on behalf of Jessica, really. Yeah. And everything. He's still drinking in the pews, his little hip flask, people moving away. But there's a lady on the other side of the aisle there, where seems to be intrigued by Davy Boy.
Yeah, he seems to have someone very much outside of their society, I suppose. This is supposed to be a private funeral for family and friends of the Thistles, who were murdered, obviously, in the first episode. Yet we have Dave Boy walking in going, well, I don't even know them. I have no idea who they are. So this sets this lady Sally really intrigued. And Dave Boy then proceeds to decide to deliver a eulogy for Jessica in front of the entire crowd, drunk as he is. Once again, Ryan Fletcher in a great moment here,
absolutely.
as he delivers this damning testimony, really. It confirms that he's the one that's killed Jessica, but he talks about the fact that she's been poorly portrayed in the media, poorly portrayed, that she's some kind of drug-addled teenager that went wild and killed her parents, but he knows she was a good person.
Yeah.
Even though he had to shoot her in the head and kill her. And yeah, then in the ensuing kind of battle with the security guards who tried to drag him outside, he knocks over the caskets of both the Thistle parents.
Yeah, it's probably as bad as it could get as a funeral,
exactly,
to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
But keeps Sally entertained, saying it's the best funeral she's ever been to.
Yeah.
So it looks like it might be a little love interest there for Dave Boy out of nowhere. Yeah.
She seems kind of intrigued by Dave Boy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a good little scene. But certainly, this is the driver for Dave, is Jessica's death at his hands, even though it was necessary at the time.
Mm-hmm.
There was no chance that Jessica would be snapping out of it. You can see this will be a real driver for Dave Boy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I thought this was a nice little sort of, at this moment, it felt like an aside, but it was a nice one to, given Dave Boy is, the only original member of, along with Alfie, in that original team from the first two seasons.
Yeah, exactly. Good stuff. Will we talk about Dr. Glub next?
I think so, because he reappears.
Coming out of the shadows.
Yeah, he resurfaces, wanting to make contact with Martha, whilst Martha and Mrs. P are at a playground for Samantha.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was really good. Mrs. Pennyworth is talking about her incident with Frederick.
Uh-huh.
The Randy, it was a Randy sausage.
Uh-huh.
It was a bit of how's your father? And Martha kind of saying, don't let that one date put you off. Keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And then it interrupted by Dr. Glub, who wants to meet up with her at the Queen Anne's Revenge, which I think is the pub from the first episode.
It's Alfie's pub, I think.
Yeah, and it's Alfie's pub. Yeah. It's licensed to A. Pennyworth.
Yeah.
So that's where we get to see Dr. Glub, who wants to sell his expertise to the English government after the Thistles were killed, because they were his original buyers for his expertise, presumably around psychotropic drugs and their development. But he is being tracked by the CIA, and so Glub has to run out of the Queen Anne's Revenge pretty swiftly to escape the CIA.
Yeah,
but interesting, as he heads out, he does say to Martha, it's not Patrick you need to worry about.
That's right.
And then we see that Virginia is there in that vicinity and sees Martha leaving the pub that they just met in.
Yes.
So I'm guessing Miss Virginia Devereaux is very much a tough nut.
I think so, yeah, and definitely the one to worry about as we've seen the last couple of episodes. It's not Patrick; he's not the one in charge here. It's definitely Virginia Devereaux. I loved how this tied up those stories that we've seen in the last couple of episodes. How we now know why the Thistles are dead. I guess it's live by the sword, die by the sword, or live by the psychotropic drug, die by the psychotropic drug. I guess for the Thistles, they were the original buyer. So now we know why they were killed. We have the motive now, even though we know it wasn't Jessica that wanted to kill them. She was forced to kill them. So it seems now in this episode, and we'll go on to it on our next point, with Virginia deciding to drug Thomas Wayne. She was clearly the one that set that whole thing in motion to kill off the Thistles, who were buying the drugs and the expertise from Dr. Glub.
Yeah.
Wow, he charges a lot though, doesn't he? $5 million a year plus access to all of the research he wants to get access to. That's a massive investment. He says he's worth it though.
I guess he is, with all these people running after him.
Yeah, I guess so. So on to our next major hit, which is the drugging of Thomas Wayne. This is another thing that felt very Batman 66, very, very comic book Batman. Yes. This idea of the person that you know really well being drugged and hypnotized to be the one to kill you, and how do you get them out of that situation? But I really liked how they did it in this episode. As a viewer watching it, you know that Thomas has been drugged. We see Patrick trying to push back against it. She's gone too far, effectively, with Thomas on the floor, knocked out after being drugged. I do wonder whether Patrick is under some kind of influence as well, because she tells him to go back to his room, and it's like as if he's fighting against it, but still has to obey her orders. Yeah. I don't know whether that's just simply he has to obey everything she says, or is she mind controlling him as well in some way? I wonder if he's also under some kind of mind control.
Maybe.
But I liked how it played out, where
definitely.
The next time we see Thomas come back in, he's done something really romantic. He's gone out and gotten dinner, a bottle of wine. They're going to have a nice evening in together. We have the conversation between him and Martha, where they settle the issue that they had about him not knowing everything that was going on. And then the phone rings, and once again, Sandra's Caravans and Candlesticks plays over the phone, triggering in a Manchurian Candidate type of way.
Yeah,
triggering,
still number 3 in the charts.
It might have moved up to number 2 now.
Well, the amount of times they've played it.
Yeah. But it triggers Thomas to effectively kill his wife. And I love how this played out. I love how this was filmed in the episode. Seeing what's happening inside Thomas's head, where he's almost picturing Martha as Bess when she was a member of the Raven Union. She's wearing the same outfit, has a very similar haircut, and they're battling back and forth across the table, and battling back and forth between what's actually going on and this vision that Thomas is seeing as well. I thought that was really well done.
I thought that psychedelic state, the visual, was just really, really well conceived and really well shot. Like, I loved how, there's just Martha in a Raven uniform for a start, but just how it's all kind of grayed, the colours lost other than, certain pops of it. But even, during the fight, during the struggle between Thomas and Martha, I love how it interchanges. And actually, you see Martha in the psychedelic state that Thomas is seeing, enjoying this. She hits him and there's a smile there. Even when he hits her, it's like, sort of like a sadomasochist with the smile back from it, and she comes rolling on in, and then it cuts to the reality of it, where Martha doesn't panic. She's MI5 trained in that sense, but it's the fact that it's her husband doing this. It's the shock of that, the panic of that on her face, and it just contrasts really, really nicely. And the fact that Thomas gets a stab in with the knife, like that I wasn't expecting. He stood over her, and luckily, I'm guessing that Mrs. Pennyworth has forgotten her keys or something she's had to come back for, is there in the nick of time to save her as she knocks out Thomas.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, as well, she lifts up the phone and hears the song playing and is confused as to what that is and puts the receiver down. But the important thing is she hears the song. I'm guessing they will know at some point, once the dots are connected for Mrs. P, because she was just like, what's that about? Put it down. Yeah. So once that kind of formulates in her mind, or if she hears something, she might be the source to identify what the trigger is.
Yeah, that could be it. Could be it.
Yeah.
There is one other person alive that knows that trigger as well, that knows that was there when a murder happened because of the trigger, which is kind of our final point. But I do want to say I love that moment. I love the triggering of Thomas Wayne in this episode. Really, really good.
Yeah, definitely.
Final point really is talking about Sandra, who was the other person left alive after Jessica murdered everybody in the room when her song was played on the radio. So she may also have the idea of what that trigger is.
Yes.
Alfie goes over to visit Sandra after his conversation with Lucious, where Lucious is talking to him. They're having a bit of a boys' chat, but Lucious isn't very good at boys' chats. Everything has to be serious. It has to be really deeply contemplative for him. Alfie's probably very used to going out for a couple of pints with Dave Boy, where they just kind of talk a little bit about work, but never very deep. But Lucious and him are talking much more serious about what happened with Gully. And Alfie says to him that the one thing you can mark Gully about is his arrogance, the belief in himself, which is something you have to be a leader in the army. And Lucious thinks about it for a while, kind of going, I never really connected those two things together. But it's the true belief in not dying, in the fact that the world around you will make sure you live forever and you never die, seems to be what drives Gully as a leader, and drives everybody that was ever a member of his army before, meaning someone like Alfie. Yeah.
And it also links back to where Gully is talking to Alfie in the bookies about his wife and the affair. So that's Melanie.
Yeah.
And Alfie suddenly coming to realization, well, Gully Troy needs a reason for hope to live and should go to America because he wants to go to America to try and patch things up with Melanie, even though Alfie doesn't think that's going to work.
Yeah.
That's his hope, and that's what he says to Lucious as well. And so for me, that's why Alfie goes back to Sandra. It's that missed opportunity for him in the same way as the missed opportunity because of his actions with Melanie.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite nice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when he gets to the apartment, it's really telling, what he sees around Sandra. You know, in the past, she had her father who was kind of controlling and didn't really want her to be with Alfie. And Alfie was in a really good relationship with her for a time anyway, and helping her out and making sure that she was supported. Whereas now she's on her own, she's successful in her career, at least with the number 3 song in the country. But she's surrounded by people who are just taking advantage of her. Really telling. There was loads of people murdered in that apartment. The blood still hasn't even been cleaned up. And now there's still even more people back in her apartment, and a whole new crowd of people back in her apartment getting drunk, and living it up on what Sandra's giving to them. Alfie sees this as a really sad state of affairs for her, kicks everybody out, and is there to take care of her. So it is him reconnecting with Sandra and making sure that she does have that shoulder to lean on again.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah, and all coming from that conversation with Lucius, who doesn't see himself as a very good conversationalist.
No, not at all.
But a deep thinker.
Yes.
Yeah. Great moment there with him. I really, really enjoy seeing Simon Mayona here as Lucius Fox. I just like the idea of him getting to the heart of a matter and giving some help to Alfie that he wouldn't get anywhere else.
Yeah.
A great character.
Exactly. I think that's everything from this episode. Derek, any notes or Cockney rhyming slang that you want to enlighten us with?
You're going to have to start taking the notes of the Cockney rhyming slang in the future, John. I have a few more for this episode. Having a nice kip.
Yes.
Just having a sleep.
Yes.
Yeah. She's brown bread this time, which is she's dead.
Yeah.
Which you know. A bit of how's your father, which we talked about last time, which is having sex. And one more that I had to look up this time because I've always heard it but never knew what it meant. Which was Dave Boy again with his Scottish slang, saying I'm havering. I never knew what that meant because it's a lyric in the Proclaimers song 500 Miles. When I haver, I'm havering to you. What it actually means is I'm talking rubbish. I never knew that's what that meant.
Okay.
So I'm havering. I'm just over here havering. It means I'm talking rubbish. Don't even mind about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Basically.
Excellent
There
stuff.
you go.
Yeah, no, that's a good one.
Talking garbage.
Like
Sorry.
Yeah, I like that one.
There you go. How about you, John? Any notes for the episode?
The only one I've got is just where Gully says, I'm not a man, I'm a household appliance.
Ooh, yes. Yeah.
Like, you're really down on his look, really.
He certainly was.
Yeah.
Especially when he was knocked out by Alfie and went, I'm beginning to suspect you aren't as good a friend as I thought.
Yeah, exactly.
As well. Poor Gully this episode. I'm feeling a bit sorry for him, even though he was a bit of an a-hole throughout season 2.
Yeah.
Just feeling a little sorry for the predicament he's in. It looks like he may live forever as a household appliance that just gets plugged in and plugged out by the government when they need them to fight on their side.
Yeah, exactly.
But can't be left alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, John, what do you think of the episode? How did you rate it?
I really enjoyed this episode. I'd give it 4 goggle girls out of 5. I just liked how this ran ultimately to what happens at Thomas and Martha's evening soiree. I really enjoyed that. I liked how it just brought back in Doctor Glub, the connections. Again, it's just fleshing out everything. But I think in conjunction with the other 2 episodes, this did feel like it came to that crescendo point here for an opening episode. So it may have taken a long time with an hour for each episode, but I think it was worth it. And I just probably want to see more of Bet in here, to be honest. But again, I'm not too sure to what extent there is not a fissure or a split, but in terms of the investigative work that Dave Boy and Alfie do, is Dave Boy going to be on this Thistle case? Alfie doesn't seem that interested in it.
I don't think it's that he's not interested. He's just kind of going, hang on a second, you've got the combined forces of
exactly.
of all of the government that can look at this. Dave Boy, you're way out of your depth. They're probably better suited for this than I am.
Definitely.
And I'm not getting paid for it.
Exactly. I thought Lucius's lab was cool. The whole Gully causing havoc out in London was brilliant, and I thought that psychedelic state of Thomas, just how that was done, was really, really good. Good to see as well Virginia being sort of dastardly really when she drugs Thomas. Just that whole conversation with him, I thought that was it felt proper sort of espionage, dastardly. And like it felt, 1960s Bond in that sense. The setting, the use of the little mirror to see where he is before using the drug on him.
Very cool. The mirror and her lipstick. That was very cool. Very cool.
So I would give this 4 goggle girls out of 5.
I definitely feel it found its footing by this episode. The first couple of episodes, I do think you were right. Lots of stuff crammed into them, lots of things cutting back and forth really quickly between all the storylines. They're trying to build together this mosaic to make the episode almost, rather than giving every storyline time to breathe. Whereas in this episode, it felt like they got the balance of delineating the storyline, so we know exactly what's going on with each
and pulling the
section.
Threads from the previous 2 episodes,
and
as
pulling
well.
everything together in this episode. So hoping for a lot more of this type of episode as we go on for the next couple of weeks on the Pennyworth season 3. A reminder to our wonderful fellow governors and fellow former Gothamites, make sure you send in your thoughts to us. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or come over and join us in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, where I'll put up a spoiler post every week for each episode as they're released, and you can pop in your thoughts in there and we'll discuss them on the future podcast.
Yes, and please make sure you stay subscribed to the podcast on the podcast catcher of your choice. Please share the podcast, rate us, leave a review, because sharing the podcast is, of course, sharing the love.
Absolutely.
You can also support us over on Patreon at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, or over on buymeacoffee.com/TVPI.
Absolutely. And thanks so much to all of you who've been supporting us over the last 8 years of podcasting.
Yes, we are covering as well at the moment Marvel's She-Hulk over on our Defenders TV podcast, as well as the Rings of Power on TV Podcast Industries. So you can join us for those shows as well.
Absolutely.
We've just finished our podcast coverage of The Sandman, which was released in August on Netflix.
Another DC show.
Exactly. So lots and lots of shows for you to come and join us on as well, as we discuss in spoiler-filled fashion everything about those shows.
And you'll get them all on our main feed at TV Podcast Industries, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Exactly.
We'll be back next week with Pennyworth Season 3, Episode 4, Silver Birch. Looking forward to delving back into more Pennyworth.
Yes, good stuff. As always, fellow future Gothamites, fellow governors, it is a pleasure chatting to you about the world of Batman and Alfred Pennyworth in particular. And remember, in the meantime, keep watching, keep listening, and keep serving realness.
Bye.
Bye.